Welcome to the latest edition of Cageside Speaks. My name is 14 Fitzpatrick, and for today's show, we have our very first international edition of the show. We have brought together 3 new guests on this edition of Cageside Speaks to talk about the WWE UK Championship Tournament that was held last week, January 14th and 15th in Blackpool, England. And starting off with Brian Danielson's beard.
Hey.
Also joining us is Keith Harris.
Hi, hello everyone.
You've seen Keith Harris on other related Cageside podcasts, including an interview with both Maria Canales of TNA and the owner of RPW, was it?
Yep, Andy Quilden.
Which are both fascinating shows in their own right. And finally, our very first speaker from Germany, Leap Saxon.
Hello, everyone.
So this is going to be a really interesting show. To start us off, what were your first impressions when the United Kingdom tournament was announced? And we're going to start off with Keith.
So it all seemed to be quite hasty, in the sense that they had the press conference and tickets were on sale sort of immediately, and that it was only like a month before the tournament. And I think the initial lineup ended up being a bit different from the one that we saw last weekend. So initially, I think Mark Andrews wasn't announced because his TNA contract didn't expire until the end of the year. And I think Martin Stone was sort of a late addition as well to the tournament. And so initially, I think people, at least within the UK, looked at it as a slightly weak lineup. Although obviously there was, a lot of UK fans are very high on British Strong Style, Pete Dunne, Trent Seven, and Tyler Bate, who most people viewed as like who would be the big stars in the tournament.
Oh, wow. Like, I had no idea about most of the competitors that were in this tournament. And I heard that there was quite a lot of rumbling about that there were certain performers that weren't in it because of certain contracts, like they had an ROH or New Japan contract, and that prevented them from being on the show. But I think that actually, in hindsight, that worked better because this tournament was amazing for what it is. Everybody put in a lot of effort. And what were your first impressions when this was announced, BDB?
Well, we had that whole rumor going around about this whole UK people signing contracts. We wondered why would they be signing contracts to not even appear on WWE. And then 2 weeks later, boom, here comes the tournament. So, we start putting two together. But seeing who did come into that tournament, standing on stage, I can't help but smile now looking back with Trent and Keith stood next to Triple H. It's still wonderful cockles. But looking at who came in, I could see the few in there. You got your Pete Dunne, you got your Dan Blair, who's one for the future. Looking at Shikara's young line here, one that I've got an eye on. Tiger Bate, obviously. Trent Seven, Mustache Mountain, traveling around the world, doing their thing. And even the people, you got your whole Tyson T-Bones, he's in progress a lot. They're Irish. That's the partnership going terrible. Carrying up from Scotland. You can start to see the kind of partnerships coming in. They were bringing in everyone around coaches that they're friendly with coming into this tournament. And we've touched upon that pretty, his tournament, tickets now available. I woke up about an hour after the thing, and then it's like, oh, okay, tickets are up. Oh crap, get the thing on, and I luckily got it. But I know a lot of people that they didn't know until the day after. The tickets were gone already.
That's cool. Yeah, I know you're a major fan of Mustache Mountain and British Strong Style. Because if folks haven't noticed, that he has a ginormous Fight Club Pro flag. That's a promotion in the United Kingdom. So, Leap Saxon, what was your first impressions of the United Kingdom tournament?
I would say I was excited because I don't know too much about the British scene, wrestling scene, but I have seen some of it online and also the shows that I went to here in Germany, the indie shows. They had British wrestlers before, and they were always the most exciting ones on the show. So I was excited and curious to see what was going to happen.
Yeah, and it was a nice contrast of styles. And as far as the individual matches, we opened the show with a new commentating team as well, which was Nigel McGuinness, freshly released from his Ring of Honor contract, teamed up with Michael Cole, who did an amazing job commentating this tournament. I know that we give Cole a lot of flack over the years, but this was one of his best performances.
He sure did. He was really good. I mean, obviously, when I watch the shows in Germany, I usually have a German announcing team babbling over the American announcement team, but he was really good. He definitely. It was refreshing to listen to him and McGuinness talk about the matches.
Yeah, that was it was really cool to see a different side of Michael Cole over what we're used to. And to start things off, we had Trent Severn versus AC Dyer, who opened up the show. And what I really liked about all of these first round matches is it really spotlighted a lot of good people, even though that they had lost their first round match. And Trent, as being part of Mustache Mountain, really set the show off on a good note to start things off. And so, Keith, what were your thoughts on night one?
I think it was a bit of a mixed bag. I think that overall, some of the performers seemed a bit nervous and maybe didn't quite live up to their full potential. But I think overall, most of the matches were, sort of kept fairly short. So even if a match was a bit boring or wasn't as good as the rest, because the match was kept short, the show as a whole flew by. I was there live, and the crowd was hot throughout for both nights. So, I mean, I think people really wanted to see the performers do well for themselves and were there to have a good time. So I think that created a really special sort of environment to hold these matches in.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the show and I was like, oh my god, look at those chandeliers. Hope William Regal doesn't drop any on people he doesn't like. And we say that specifically because the CWC tournament was an interesting concept. It had a large field, but a lot of people kind of complained about lack of storytelling. This show did not have this problem. Because you had a lot of good babyface characters, and you had one absolutely despicable heel in Pete Dunne, who proved on his first opponent was, let me check here. His first opponent was Roy Johnson, who is a Progress regular. And they had a really good first round match where he got to showcase his versatility and he was good, put a nice spotlight on Roy Johnson, who had one of the more unique gimmicks of the tournament. Still didn't get quite the reaction. I mean, for an average match, the match between Sam Gradwell and Saxon Huxley was one of the loudest and must have made Pastor Bill Ever very, very confused. I think that even they were kind of taken aback by it, because like they go, are they chanting Jesus?
That was one of the things I commented on when I live blogged the show, when I watched it. I was like, are they really chanting, "Let's go Jesus, Jesus sucks"? And the longer the match went on, I realized they were actually chanting, having Jesus chants. But yeah, the British crowd, that's what they are like. And I thought it was hilarious,
Mhm.
to be honest.
Yeah, it was really interesting, because I'd never seen such a dynamic crowd, and both Harris and BDB here were in the crowd. In fact, you might have seen his Fight Club Pro flag in the shot on multiple occasions during the network broadcast.
Try to get up as much as possible.
So, what were your thoughts on night one, BDB?
Well, I think the opening contest that set the tone. You have Trent come out to his not quite Seven Nation Army, but it's close enough. That kind of sets the tone for the whole weekend. And it's going to be fun. It's basically what it was. It was a fun weekend. The rest of it. Everyone in there came out with a story. Like I said, it was all storytelling. They built the stars. If they want to do this weekly show that they want to do down the line, they're all established with their own characters. There wasn't just this guy's out here just to wrestle. They all had that. And I mean, let's look at what we had with Trent and Dyer. They were, pretty short match, but they both got the offense in. Trent did his truck style bit, which still is amazing. Then you got Jordan Devlin, Danny Burch. Obviously, Devlin being Baden's protege, and then turning heel. That was master stroke, because he was struggling. You could hear the crowd. When that crowd flipped on him, he knew what to do, and he went to town with, oh yeah, I'm big, I am, I don't need him, yeah. And then you got your Wolfgang Tyson. That was just a slugfest. That was. You weren't expecting much from both. To be honest, Wolfgang was probably the favourite coming into it, because of the Scotland connections. But that was a pretty fun match. What else we got? Joseph Connors. Obviously, he's expected to go far in that. And James Drake, who again had a bit of the whole Huxley's about him. The crowd, he's got his own arse on his face, and it's kind of they going into it. You worry sometimes if the character's working. You're a bit nervous that they're gonna scrutinize you with your stuff, or are they gonna get behind me, or are they not? And in these particular instances with Drake and Huxley, the whole fact that the crowd, even something so silly like he looks like Jesus, he's got his own face on his trunks, that then became work off. Like, for example, Huxley, he's now taking bookings around the country and advertising as the British UK Championships Jesus. He's now got that as his tagline. That's them bringing more people in. Obviously, Pete Dunne just wrecked shop on Roy Johnson. People have said, it would have been nice to get Wasteman Challenge in. They touched a bit on it on the preview videos that they did, but I mean, if we're getting the series down the line, we can take this. I can get more time to do that kind of stuff. Mark Andrews, Dan Maloney, I've seen a lot of them wrestling through the years now. I was just great. Seen Mark get out of his contract and be able to star in this. That was just great. Like I said, Dan, he's limited. He's quite young still, but he has potential. I can see the small bits he got in there. If they're bringing him back, then build on that stuff. And that was the main event. the Tyler Bate main event, the pay-per-view, first day, that was just, he's just such a great guy. Watching him wrestle, and he's 19 years old. He wrestles like he's been there for 40 years. It's ridiculous.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean the Tyler Bates Tucker match was the surprise of night one, I thought, because I had no expectation going in of these two, and it was a very, very enjoyable match. Although I think some people would have liked it if Tucker had gone on to the second round instead of the Finn Balor cosplayer who managed to somehow kick Danny Burch in the head, accidentally busting him open. And props to the professionalism of Mr. Burch, because if I had gotten kicked in the head and I was noticed blood, I would have been quite crossed. And the reason that happened is he was wearing those kick pads with the stuff sticking out of them. And it's connected to the back of his head. And what they were trying to go was some kind of screwy finish for that match, but instead they had to do a stoppage. Obviously, because he's losing blood. Yeah, not the best impression from the Finn Balor cosplayer on night one.
Well, I think Devlin is probably the only performer, I think, whose stock may have dropped from the tournament, in the sense that they gave him such a big build-up coming in as sort of Finn's protege, which seemed like it would be that he would be a big baby face in the tournament. And I'm not sure whether him turning heel was actually sort of subtly planned, or they just played along with the crowd. But Devlin, I think, had come in with a great reputation from the Irish fans for his work in OTT, and he was the only performer, I think, who people knew about, who really sort of may have underachieved in terms of what was expected from him. There was a lot of people, like maybe Wolfgang, people weren't that high on, who overachieved in that. He had three good matches, good fast-paced brawls, and he, I think, upped his stock a lot with his performances, whereas I think Devlin was the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely seemed to drop his stock a little bit on night one. I think that some things may have been changed for night two, because his match got cut by a few minutes, because in the second round he lost in 6 minutes 5 seconds to Bates. And then you had Wolfgang beating Severn, which was a surprise. I think a lot of people expected him to go a little bit farther in the tournament. Wouldn't you agree, Keith?
Yes, but I think some of us was thinking that maybe they would have wanted, say, in the final four, someone from Scotland, which would have been Wolfgang, someone from Wales, which was Mark Andrews, someone from England, which would have been Pete Dunne, and maybe someone from Ireland. That was one thought going into this. So I don't think people were too surprised that Wolfgang got into the semi-finals. But I don't think, at least within our group of my friends, I don't think any of us thought Wolfgang would get any farther than that.
So, what were I think I might have asked this question before, but what were your thoughts on night one, Leap?
I hate Devlin. As I am more of a casual viewer, and I connect to a lot of those wrestlers on an emotional level. For me, that ending to the Devlin Birch match, that was just, and I hate Devlin by that in that regard. So that was one of the things that stood out for me. Overall, the first night was enjoyable. There were two matches, I think, that were slightly underwhelming for me. It was the one with Huxley, I think, the Jesus guy.
Yep.
And the second one that sort of underwhelming was Connors versus what was his name? Name.
James Drake.
James Drake, exactly. That one was also not really gripping me, but the rest was really, really great. And yeah, well, for me, Seven stood out, obviously. Then Tyler Bate stood out. I was amazed by Wolfgang because he's such a big dude and he can move. Holy shit. And I also liked Mark Andrews. Obviously, I am a fan of flippy shit, so that is understandable. But yeah, I was thoroughly entertained. I liked it.
Mm-hmm. I enjoyed night one. I liked most of the matches on the show, but then again, I have a bit of a lower expectation because I did not, like I said, I only knew about 4 of these competitors and had seen maybe a few matches of theirs, and there were a lot of people in this tournament that were complete unknowns to me that really impressed me. Tyler Bates, Severn, Wolfgang. I have not seen a guy that big fly around the ropes like he did. Andrew's impressed, obviously showing that his time in TNA, that he's still just as good as he's been. Connors was an unknown because he mainly had worked previously for What Culture Pro Wrestling, but WWE had grabbed him for this tournament, and he did okay in his first match. I was trying to figure out what exactly were they chanting in the Connors Drake match. I wasn't sure exactly what was going on. I was like, are they randomly chanting or?
Yeah, no, it's Trunks. It's Trunks. Because he has his own face.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got his own face on his ass.
That's what they were chanting.
Yep.
We're observant bunch.
Okay. And then, of course, you had the story of the ending of the first night, which was fantastic. Because in the previous Cruiserweight Classic, as we mentioned, it was basically a real tournament feel. Like everything in the tournament was like, oh, well, this is athletic. You didn't have anybody who was being really vicious except for TJP, who was doing the whole knee bar heel thing, and Brian Kendrick doing his redemption face run. The end of night one of this tournament proved to be very different. See, when they announced the matchups for the second day of the tournament, which were Bates versus Devlin, Severn versus Wolfgang, Andrews versus Connors, and Dune versus Gradwell, well, let's just say that Mr. Dune didn't want to wait for the second day to get an opportunity at beating Sam Gradwell to a pulp. And actually what they did is they actually kind of did a little bit of an error. If there's one fault I could give them is that they didn't showcase the full beatdown until the opener of the second day of the tournament.
Yeah, it felt cut off when I watched it. It just it managed to get me as an emotional viewer to really utterly loathe Pete Dunne, and to say it in the great words of Things and Stuff, he can sit in glitter forever and ever, because he was the most unlikable person on the whole tournament for me. But yeah, that ending of the first night, it was just, it felt like, wait, what? Is my internet connection off? That, because it was so abrupt.
I think it was a massive mistake for them to cut it off like that because, you know, showcase the full brawl, then do the video package replay of the second night because to the people in the audience, they saw the full brawl. Keith and BDB here saw the full brawl. Whereas we, the TV audience, we didn't see the full brawl until the second night.
I don't know if that was by design though, because I think they wanted it to have a feel like this wasn't supposed to happen, sort of thing. And I think they tried to do, like, they had the follow up shortly after on either YouTube or WWE.com of, you had like William Regal getting in sort of Pete Dunne's face, like he was very upset that he was jeopardizing, Pete Dunne was jeopardizing his tournament, and Triple H saying, sort of giving a bit of a nod to him, like, nice job at making a name for yourself. So I think they wanted to have this sort of close to a bit more realistic feeling. So maybe they went off quickly. It could have been they were running out of time, but it might have been by design to try and make viewers think like this wasn't something that was supposed to happen, sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And the start of night 2 was extremely amazing. So we had night 2 open up with obviously the entire staff attempting to hide the William Regal's brass knuckles so he didn't beat Pete Dunne to a pulp. And we started with a very angry Sam Gradwell versus Dunne. This match was a first for me. I had never seen a match end with a slam on the turnbuckle. He did a body slam to Gradwell on the turnbuckle, pinned him for the free count. Never seen that happen before. That was just amazing. And for Gradwell, he had a decent performance in this tournament. It wasn't anything outstanding, but he did his part well. And then at the end there, Dunne hit his finisher, and then he cut a really good promo and saying, I'm here to make a name for myself. 2 down, 2 to go. Are you saying something there, BDB?
Oh, sorry, yeah, no, I was going to say, going into it, Gradwell before, you look at the promos he did before, I'm here to make sure that I'm a part of this in the future. And then you get there and he becomes sacrificial lamb. He is just basically there for Pete Dunne to rip apart. Because the thing is, Pete Dunne at his best is him just tearing people apart, not caring anything. He's fighting fingers, fighting shoes. It's just what he is. He is the bruiserweight. He is young and bitter. And it's just funny to see that they went down that angle. Yeah, the late night beatdown at the end of night 1 into night 2, and just making short work of them. And then, him popping up later as well. Just the story they told of just William Regal versus Pete Dunne, and Pete Dunne wanted to ruin William Regal's party. Like, do something, Triple H. Triple H is like, no, he's making a name for himself. That's what I would have done. It's just amazing.
I mean, because it's 2 stories here. William Regal is trying to redeem himself for all of the villainy that he has caused in the past. Here we have this young upstart who's doing everything that William Regal would have done in his youth. And Regal's horrified. It's like, is this what I've inspired out of this generation of British wrestlers? Is to act like me? And It was just such a nice dynamic. And then we had in the other bracket was Andrews versus Connors, and wow, Andrews did well against Dan Mahoney,
Yeah, Miller.
one of the great enhancement guys that they brought on.
Yeah.
And this was the first match that Connors really had clicked with an audience, because before he was trying to play sort of a friendly face character with half of his ear gone. That was the other thing that kind of freaked us out, was like, he has half of his ear missing. And so, Leap, what were your thoughts on Andrews versus Connors?
That was actually a really good match. I loved that, obviously, that Andrews did a lot of flippy shit. I mean, it was starting almost instantly the second the bell rang. And Connors, to me, he came off as so creepy. So very, very creepy. And that is a good thing that he achieved that. And it was a really, really great match. And that stunner that I think Andrews does it, doesn't he? Out of I called it stunner out of nowhere, and that may have become my new favorite wrestling move. It's so great, and I loved it. I was sad to see Andrews lose. Didn't know. Did he lost? Yes.
Yeah, he lost in the semifinals.
No, he lost later. Yeah,
Mhm.
but it was a good match. It was a really, really good match. I loved it.
It must have been somewhat disappointing for you, BDB, in the live audience to see that, like we talked about earlier, we didn't expect Severn to lose in the second round of Wolfgang. What was your reaction?
Well, looking at the bracket going in, you were seeing, oh look, they're going to do Tyler Bate versus Trent Seven, and they're going to do Mustache Mountain Collide. You know, you're going to have to deal with the full line. Now, Wolfgang snuck it, which is, you know, their time in Scotland. They've had their battles, they've had their wars. They've got another war coming in a few weeks' time up in Glasgow again in the ICW still. But those two, they can battle. You know, seeing the spots they did with the whole, I'm going to do the turnbuckle suplex to the outside and the scream mid move at the three people. You can see that, you know, from the past, it's about a year and a half now, they've just been waging this war. And like I said, Wolfgang stuck it. I wanted Trent to win. Trent, I said the whole time, Trent is my heart, beats my head. That's who I've got to see winning. But, I mean, it's gutting that Trent didn't go through. You know, it was his, as he said, one of his last chances to hit it big. But, you know, I think, like you said, you've got to have that whole group partnership, and you've got to have the Scottish representative to go through. Have that whole representation of the whole United States rather than a Final Four or Fight Club Pro finals, which, you know, would have been nice, but you can see why it could happen.
I was really impressed by Severn in this tournament. I was like, when he first came out, I was like, oh my goodness, the Brits have cloned JBL. Just his look was like, oh, I'm sure there are quite a few American fans are going to be quite surprised by this guy and go, oh my God, this is a British wrestler. Because he doesn't have your typical look.
I think I've read one thing where an American reviewer said, oh, look, the British wrestlers, they don't do sit-ups. It's just like, okay.
So I my nickname for Trent Seven is the King of Banter Road, because he can do the really serious, like, strong Japanese style, and he can also mix in like some of the more fun elements, interacting with the crowd. You know, his facials are superb in terms of, you know, responding to what has happened in the match. So I'm a huge fan of Trent Seven, and yeah, I thought he did really well with the limited time he had in the tournament. to get himself over, but also get his opponents over as well. Because I think Wolfgang looked the best out of the 3 matches against Trent, I thought.
There was actually a spot in the match where I was like, is he going to seriously chuck Wolfgang into the crowd? Because he did this spot on a couple of occasions, and he did in the first round too, where he looked like he was about to suplex somebody off the floor.
Trent's the crazy guy. He's done that a few times in matches in ICW and places like that. So, but it was. I think it was a great spot to tease it. I don't think WWE would have been too happy if he actually hit that move.
I mean, okay, Weagle already has almost an aneurysm going with with Dune's antics. I'm not sure he would have been terribly pleased with Savern accidentally crushing half the crowd by chucking Wolfgang at them.
Yeah.
And then finally, in our final quarterfinals match, it was Devlin versus Bates. And as we said earlier in the show, this was one of the shortest matches at 6:05. Only Gradewell Dune was shorter at 4:50. And, well, they did their job. Bate went through to the second round. He had a great first round match with Tucker. And then the second round, it was sort of quiet. But then again, to be fair, he was facing against Devlin, who puts off the natural heel look very well. Just needs to work on the striking.
I thought Devlin did a better job on the second night. So it was still maybe the match didn't quite click 100%, but he seemed to be a bit more comfortable in his own skin and I thought this match was fine, but the star of it was Tyler Bate, and I think at that point you could see that the crowd was getting fully behind Tyler Bate, and he was the guy that I think everyone would have been happy to see win. Like, everyone had their perhaps own favourites, like BDB wanted to see Trent Seven win. There was a lot of ICW fans that would have loved to see Wolfgang win. But I think the crowd as a whole would have been happiest with the end result that did eventually happen, because everyone loved Tyler and his sort of muscle man spots, the old airplane spin and things like that. He does a lot of cool stuff, like old school stuff but with a modern twist, and I think and he's just has a really likable presence as well.
My first reaction to Bate was, did they invent a time machine and go back to the 1870s? Because, wow, I was not expecting to see a classic British strongman in this tournament. And at 19 years old, that was the other thing that shocked me and my mom, was these are really young people doing these spots. Continue.
Well, I'm sorry to butt in. Well, I've seen like Tyler Bate wrestle for about a couple of years, and he was always a natural. So I first saw him wrestle in Sheffield. So this would be about 2 to 2.5 years ago, in that ballpark. And he was a natural even then. He stood out he was in this 6-man tag. And I didn't know how young he was at the time, but he stood out as something different, but also being very smooth in the ring, and just being able to hit everything that he was doing very well.
Yeah, I mean, I was really impressed by what he was doing. What were your thoughts on this match, BDB?
Well, like I said, looking through, you don't know whether it's going to be bait or Wolfgang. You can't really tell. You know, it's between the two. But I think that was the start of the bait rise. You look at the next day as well when he got next rank. Sorry, when he got beat down by Dunn, it started to tell the whole. I'd said it's almost a Daniel Bryan-esque story.
Yeah, it really started his run for him, which was very impressive. And then the semifinals matches, it was basically a tale of two different matches. Because what we didn't talk about in the Wolfgang Severn match was Wolfgang had injured his nose in that last match. And was the second incident of blood on this show by accident. So they were very careful with Wolfgang because he possibly had broken his nose. He had tweaked his knee, which I think was a work injury, but I wasn't so sure. So they kept it at a nice 5 minutes, 55 seconds. And Bate won with the finisher. His Tyler Driver 97. So what were your thoughts on the match, Leaf Saxon?
Well, that was that was a nice match. I think it was short, as you said, and I liked the whole. I liked the story that they told, even though it was rather short. But it was a yeah. In general, I think it was a nice match. I was a little bit distracted in that match because at the beginning of each match, it seemed that Nigel McGuinness, that is, I think, the only criticism I had of his announcing. At the beginning of each match, he told about the finishes of each competitor, and he always said nobody kicks out of that. And that was a little distracting me from the match. In general, it was a good match, though. And yeah, the Tyler Driver, it seemed to come quite by surprise to me.
As did I. I was like, wow, this guy's strong.
Yeah.
Okay, so what were your thoughts on this semifinal match? Wolfgang versus Bate, BDB.
So going in, you got the Wolfgang versus Bate bet. You know, you're expecting Scottish to get through and set up. But like I said, you know, with Tyler Bate coming out of it, doing his whole redemption angle, you know, I'm struggling, you know, he's a big lad, I can't take him, and to come out and do what he did, that just set up that final night, and it's just like, well, is he going to win it? Is he not? You know, I've watched him, and you're hoping that he's going to win because Tyler's just an awesome lad. He's amazing. You know, watching him wrestle, the stuff he does, like I said, he's a throwback to like the 60s and 70s, and he's not even in his not even past his teenage years yet. It's just crazy.
What were your thoughts on the semifinal match, Keith?
Well, I think this, one of the interesting things was the crowd dynamic in the sense that Wolfgang started to get booed in this match. And, before in the two previous matches, he had been the crowd favourite, which probably, solidified, in WWE's mind that maybe that Tyler Bate was the right person to probably win the tournament, and they've got behind the right person. I thought the match was a nice contrast in terms of Wolfgang being much bigger than Tyler Bate, so you can work the sort of big man versus smaller man spots, and particularly I think it had the perfect finish because with the feat of strength of actually hitting his Tyler Driver 97 finisher on such a big man in Wolfgang. I thought that was perfect way to put him over before the main event.
Yeah. Yeah, that was yeah, it was a very good way to put him over for before the main event. But first there was the other semifinal match, which was the first of two 10-minute matches that the other finalist had, which was Pete Dunne. So, what was your thoughts on the match, BDB? Andrews versus Doom.
Andrew's done. It's just something that, you know, through the years, the two come through, you know, the Welsh up to Midlands area. They've run this match. Like, you can't count the amount of times they've run this. And every time I've seen it so far, it's just the two of them. They work so well together, and to see them now on this major stage doing it, the whole, they used to be a tag team called Flips and Forearms, and to see them now going against each other on this major stage, two friends going at it, is just awesome.
Yeah.
It's Andrews doing it, high flying, getting his nasty stuff in. You know, Andrews took it for a while, Pete took it for a while. It was back and forth, and then he was always going to win. He's the bigger name. He was there to make the name. He was getting, like, whatever he had to do. He was making it to those finals, and there was no way around that. And unfortunately, Mark Andrews had to fall at this point. And I think coming out of it, he obviously made a lot of fans. Clearly made a lot of fans. Rich was always going to be the way Andrews. The way that he wrestles, he's just going to make fans. You know, his whole motto at the minute, stage diving, high fives. You could see that with the amount of high fives going around the crowd, they were into it. They loved them. But yeah, Pete was always going to win in my vision. You know, he had that little bit of progression that took it that far. You know, they get to throw it.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Keith, what was your thoughts on the semifinal match?
I thought it was an absolutely thrilling match. You know, particularly in terms of 10 minutes, they didn't have that much time. But I thought, they told, a nice story. There was a lot of, impressive high spots and swings in momentum. And I thought this was a great match and probably the second best match of the whole weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they just were amazing in this semifinal match. And what were your thoughts on it, Leap Saxon?
Well, BDB is right. Andrews has made a fan, at least one. Me. He was really good in that match. It was a great story. It was lovely to see Andrews get some offense in, and there were quite a few near falls at the end, which was really insane. It made both look great, which I think was good. Yeah, the little kid, the little skinny kid, taking the fight to Dunn and almost succeeding, if even just for a second. That was lovely. In the end, Dunn won, and I hated it, of course. I knew whoever would win the other semifinal, I would root for them, and it wouldn't matter to me who it was. So yeah, mission accomplished, I guess.
To go from being a person who was being chanted bruiserweight, bruiserweight, and day one of the tournament to become the most hated person in this tournament in the course of 2 nights is an amazing accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
Andrews versus Dunne was also my second favorite match of this tournament. These two had apparently been working with one another for years. They started out together. And these little small, if you are new to British wrestling and you are looking for old YouTube videos or matches, you'll be surprised at the small size of the rings at these United Kingdom events. And that was the other thing everybody was talking about, like, oh my God, they have to wrestle in a 20 by 20 ring. Was that actually a bit of a concern, Keith?
I think some people thought that might have been an issue in one of the issues in terms of the first night's matches not being quite as good as the second night's matches, where maybe they'd got more comfortable in the ring, having had more ring time inside it. So and also it seemed like they were. I think on the first night, it seemed like they were told to hold back a little, that not to go maybe full pelt like they did on the second night, because, well, obviously you didn't want anyone getting injured, badly injured, and not being able to, to wrestle on the second night and spoiling, any plans they had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd agree with you there, and it definitely seemed like they were holding back in night one, but I think it might be for the best in that case.
Yeah.
Let's see here. So that was a really great match, and that the post match of the Wolfgang Bate match, where Dune came in, as always, and actually they almost missed the camera cut. Thankfully, they had a camera by ringside, because Dune ran into the ring and smashed Bates into the post. And so basically this sets up the final match of having to overcome having an injured shoulder. But before that match, we had a special attractions match. Neville is very angry, apparently. Very, very angry.
Angry elf.
Yes. I am amazed that this guy is able to cut as good a promo as he has. Weren't you, Keith?
I think well, he's probably it's probably his real life frustrations coming out on camera a bit, in the sense that maybe you can tap into some of his frustrations over how he's being used in WWE. I think he's obviously a very talented wrestler, but he really was on the back burner for much of the past year, until he turned heel. So I think I think maybe that might be why he's been such a revelation, is that he can tap into real emotions into his promos.
Cool. Any thoughts on that, BDB?
Well, just looking back at the Cruiserweight Classic, going back to then, timing wasn't great for him with coming off that broken leg. So you can kind of see why he wasn't in it. But I was always, is he going to rush it back and get in that last one spot? But it didn't pass through. And then the UK tournament's come around, could have been in it, but he wasn't. And it's like they could have squeezed in a space, but they didn't. The joke is now that there's going to be another tournament for women's. Is he going to come out and do a little bit, I'm not in it? But you got to question, the fact that they're able to turn him not being in it into the whole frustration bit, and then lead that to match against this opponent who coming up in a minute.
Yes, we're waiting for that.
That was something special, and to see the crowd there, because obviously Neville's come out, we weren't expecting him. We were, we'd seen him at the Q&A the day before doing like pre-show autographs, but you wouldn't expect him. There was no space on that card for this special attraction until they did the whole injury bit, and then they squeezed it in. Like, oh, okay, we're getting something special here. Here comes Neville, and then his opponent comes down, and the crowd loses it.
Yes, and in particular for Leap Saxon, because she's seen this guy perform in the German independence scene.
I have, yes.
And that person in question is Tommy End.
Yes. I was losing my my shit when he came out. I mean, I knew that he was out because obviously I could not fully avoid the spoilers before I could watch the show, but I was so excited about it because I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be so awesome. Tommy End has great chemistry, I think, with almost anyone he wrestles, and he is spectacular to watch, I have to say. I remember him from the GWP show where he wrestled Will Ospreay, and they got a 10-minute standing ovation after their match. And that is saying everything, I guess. And again, he was so great. It was awesome. But kudos also to Neville. I mean, he's upped his game, especially as far as promos go. I mean, I remember him from NXT, and it was almost like, eh, kind of bland. And now he's really coming into his own. It's fantastic.
Yeah, that match was wonderful. This was the first time that I had seen Tommy End perform in a wrestling ring, so I didn't really know what to expect. And I'm like, oh my god, this guy's got presence. He just has that star factor that you want in a wrestler. What were your thoughts on this special match, Keith?
I thought it's a very nice surprise. I mean, so I think people were aware he was in the country if they were on Twitter, because a few hours before he wrestled in the UK tournament, he was like a special surprise wrestling for Progress. So Progress, WWE as a make good, allowed Tommy End to face Jimmy Havoc on the Progress show, which some of my friends were at. So it wasn't a huge surprise that he would be on this show, even though I'm sure it's probably a 2 or 3 hour drive between Blackpool and Birmingham. So I think for him to have such a good performance, having wrestled twice in one night in 2 different cities, and obviously spent a lot of time traveling in between, I think is a testament to his abilities. I thought this was a really good match. I think it was a good way of showing that Tommy End is a big star in the UK and the rest of Europe, that he got such a good reaction coming out. Personally, I think they probably should have put Tommy End over. I think Neville could have, even though he's the cruiserweight champion, you may not want your champion to lose to someone else if it's not going somewhere else. I thought that would have been a nice moment for the UK fans, and would have been a good way of putting over Tommy End to the rest of the sort of the more casual fans watching on the WWE network.
Indeed. Though they both looked like $1 million there.
Definitely.
What were your thoughts on the match, BDB?
It's 2017. To see, like you said, from him coming from Progress, coming up to this, and wrestling. Who knows what's going on? We don't know, what's going to happen next. There's no talent. where are people going to turn up? But match itself, the striking of End against Neville's high flying, evading and striking back, that was something special. To see that live, that is essentially, it was a star attraction match. That was the special attention. That's a once in a lifetime kind of thing for that kind of tournament. That's something you weren't expecting to be thrown together, and their match it blew me away. You're coming from the emotions of watching the semi-finals, coming into this, and it was a nice breather, something special that kind of took you away from it for a moment, to then come back in the finals to get back into the story. So I think otherwise, if it was just like a random, here's some people that lost and they're going to have another match again, you wouldn't really have been that invested as you were, and you would have been, what's going on with Tyler, what's going on with Pete, what's going to happen next. but you did have, that little tiny moment away where you can recollect and recharge for that final.
Yeah, I think that was a really good decision for the company to do that with the special attraction match. As I said, this was the first time I'd seen Tommy End perform in a wrestling ring, and Neville and he had a fantastic chemistry because they had worked together before, and was a nice surprise. Didn't expect it, because what I had done for night one is I did read the spoilers for night one. For night two, shut off my PC, turned on my TV, turned on my Xbox One, got on the network for night two, watched night two completely spoiler free. So for me, the experience was exactly the same as Keith and BDB's were when they were watching live. And the final match was the best match of the show. There's no question. That was for us, we were shocked because these people had worked 4 matches in 2 days. And even though they were short matches for the most part, Pete Dunne had worked a 10-minute match previously. This was his second 10-minute match. So, Keith, what was your thoughts on the main event?
I think it was almost perfect what it needed to be, in the sense that they set up the storyline perfectly with Tyler Bate coming in injured, making sure that he would be even more be the underdog in the match. I think Pete Dunne is a tremendous heel at targeting someone's weaknesses, and I think they did a very good job of making the big spots feel impactful. So I mean, Tyler Bate hitting this like Fosbury flop dive out of nowhere, which it probably was the high spot of the whole 2 weekends, and just tremendous charisma from Tyler, in terms of things like working the airplane spin and milking the crowd, to keep that pop, maximize the crowd pop. I thought this was excellent, and we'll probably look back at it as one of the most special and maybe most important matches of the year, if this leads to a successful program on the WWE network.
Coolness. What were your thoughts on the match, BDB?
Well, like I said, the comparison I draw is WrestleMania 13. Triple H versus Daniel Bryan. Rips him apart, his shoulders knackered, he can't do it, and then comes back in the main event. That's what I compare it to. I said that, but that was Daniel Bryan right there again. That's Tyler Bate, 19 years old. He's getting that kind of booking. But going into it, like I said, Pete Dunne was my nailed-on favorite. I was expecting him to win the whole Progress angle. I'm only here to sign a contract. I don't want to, go through. I'm here to name myself. Looking at that was what I thought. I thought, okay, Pete Dunne's ripped him apart. We're going to get a bit of fight, but is the damage too much? Can Tyler bring this back? His shoulder is bad. Like we said, he's brilliant at ripping people apart. He'll find the spot and he'll rip it. I mean, he'll work your fingers, he'll work your arm, he'll work your elbow, he'll just knock you down. And then see Tyler fight through to come back, to come against all those odds that he, as the favourite, which he was, he's coming into it, come back against him and sneak out that win. That was something magical. I still look back at it now and I'm grinning like an idiot. Right, Tyler's our champion. The little kid that I've watched for all these years, he's still the WWE UK champion. It's still not sunk in. It was just magical. Just magical.
It was a surreal moment. What were your thoughts on the match, Leap?
This is why I watch pro wrestling. It was the perfect Cinderella story for Bate, really. It was just from beginning to end, it was absolutely great storytelling. It was a thrilling match. I was at the edge of my seat for the whole match. There was so much happening. It started before the match already with Finn, Triple H, and Regal being there, and Regal killing Dunn with his looks. I mean, if looks could kill, there would be no more Dunn on this planet, really. And it Bate sold sold his shoulder perfectly, and it was just amazing, and everything about it just gripped me. And I was crying at the end. I was crying tears of happiness because I was so happy to see this little kid win against the ultimate villain for me in this tournament. And I was just so happy, and perfect ending to a great tournament.
If there's one thing that they learned from the finals of the CWC is that having the villain go over is sometimes not the best idea. Whereas in this case, they knew that they had a white-hot babyface in Tyler Bate going up against this absolute monster in Pete Dunne. And kudos to both of them, because Dunne had to carry the physical villainous segments because nobody else in this storyline was capable of having a match against Dunne because Regal's neck is busted up. You know, he's not a guy that can go in the ring anymore, and all he has to do is rely on his psychological game. That look that he gave Pete Dunne when he made his entrance was like, oh my goodness, is he going to drop a chandelier on top of Dunne? Don't think that they're going to be able to use the venue anymore if they did that. Because it's over 123 years old, is from what I'm told. The main event match had wonderful psychology, wonderful pacing, and the most shocking part is that this was only a 15-minute and 10-second long match. This wasn't a 45-minute long match. This wasn't one of those New Japan long sprint matches. This was a short 15-minute match that sold so much in so little time. So perfect psychology, perfect heel-face alignment, and then the ending was fantastic. And a lot of people I've noticed they're drawing comparisons to this match and the Okada-Omega match from Wrestle Kingdom. In just showcasing the two different thought processes behind these wrestling matches. What were your thoughts on that, Keith?
So I mean I really like the Omega Okada match. I don't think I would rate it as highly as some people did. I think for me it was on the long side and the earlier stuff to me didn't play into the end as much, other than this is a really long match and they were showing that it was such a grueling match. Whereas this, I think, it was a tighter match. It was every move seemed to matter to set up the storyline that they were telling. That doesn't necessarily mean that I think Bate versus Dunne. I think you can argue maybe it was a better match, but I think the finishing stretch between Omega versus Okada, they just did a lot more, so it was maybe a bit more exciting. But I think you can argue it either way. I think I really liked the main event. Obviously, maybe I'm a bit biased because I was at one match live, and the live experience is obviously something special.
Yeah. Anybody else have any thoughts on this subject?
I'm afraid not. I did not watch the New Japan match yet.
And I guess BDB didn't watch the Okada Mega match either.
Not yet. I'm a bad fan.
But the championship ceremony was fantastic, and was a real nice closure to the show. And once again, they seemed to cut it off a little too soon, because the post match where Trent Seven went and hugged Bate after the match, along with everyone else. That was amazing. That was a really special moment. I'm glad that WWE released a clip of that.
That was really special. I'm glad that BDB shared it with me when I watched the tournament, because that was really, really sweet. Such a sweet moment, and it was indeed the perfect ending. That hug and everyone coming out and celebrating with him. It made it feel even more special, and it made it feel like everyone else was really, really happy for Bate to have won the tournament.
Yeah. One minor note about that is that keeping in character, Pete did not join Celebration, at least until the photographs at the very tail end. Keeping character there.
That was a good thing, though. I mean,
Yeah.
it just would have been wrong if he had come out for the celebration and hugged him as well, especially after what he did earlier in the night.
Yeah. So overall, what were your thoughts on this? At the end here, what were your thoughts on this 2-day tournament? Let's start off with BDB.
So, like I said, 2017, crazy year. And to start with that, looking back, would you have thought the UK would have a UK champion, potentially a weekly episodic television show on the network? You wouldn't think that, looking back last year, if you said that next year we're going to have a TV show on the network and we're going to have a champion and it's going to be Tyler Bate, no one would have believed you. They'd be like, what? No. But looking back at it now, that was just a magical weekend of wrestling. I mean, I'm lucky that I've seen a lot of these guys for the amount of years that I have now going through, so I have that rapport. But even looking at the people that have gone in with fresh eyes to see that they've now picked out favourites, that's just awesome. It's just more eyes on the product, more people are going to be tuning in, and as a whole, the United Kingdom in 2017, that's just going to rocket from this. It's the trickle down event. You've got the whole WWE bit there doing the exciting stuff they're doing, but even down to like a local show down in Cheltenham or something, you're going to have that raised. It's now brilliant. English scene, Welsh scene, Scottish scene, Irish scene, that's being raised by this tournament, and it's going to be an amazing year.
Yeah, it's going to be an very interesting year. What were your thoughts after this 2-day match ended, Leap?
The whole tournament was a great thing, and so refreshing because it was such a big difference from the usual WWE style. The storytelling was superb. Everything that the tournament made me curious to see more British wrestling, which is, I think, a really good thing. And I'm looking forward to the weekly show they're going to put on the network. And obviously, I'm also going to check out a lot more British wrestling on YouTube now, because that definitely has helped. It was refreshing, and it was I was entertained throughout.
Coolness. Keith, what were your thoughts?
I think I think they hit a home run, obviously, with the tournament. I think it remains to be seen whether they can capitalize on that long term. I think they should be able to have a successful program on the network, but I'm not convinced that they can keep it as hot as it feels now. I mean, I think it was the same with like the cruiserweights on Raw. That's been watered down a lot, and NXT. It's the big shows are still very popular, but it seems like there's less interest in the weekly television shows. So I'm not sure whether they can maintain it quite at this level of anticipation we have now, but I think it certainly can be. They can turn this into a successful series on the network. For the local promotions, I think in the short term, it probably helps people, helps promotions, but that will maybe be tapered off a little if for some promotions who aren't on, say, WWE's good books, they will lose talent because they won't be able to use the Pete Dunnes and the Tyler Bates and the other people in this tournament. So and also it depends on what happens when this becomes a weekly special. Will Progress and these other companies, OTT and ICW, be able to have as many dates with these wrestlers? So I think in the short term it's going to be a very hot period for British wrestling. I think longer term it's harder to see how all these changes will pan out.
Interesting. Very interesting. Overall, I really enjoyed this 2-day tournament. I only knew about 4 of the 16 names, and this made me a fan of 15 of the 16. Sorry, Devlin. Honest, if it weren't, I mean, the first strike is that he looks like a cosplay version of Finn Balor, and for those of you who don't know, I'm not exactly the biggest fan of Finn. So seeing a bootleg version of Finn Balor, and of course his first match didn't leave a very good impression with me. He did better in his second match, but regardless, 15 of the 16 really impressed me and made me want to see them more in matches. The main event was fantastic. The semifinals was great. And for somebody who's on the outside, as I am, I'm from America. I don't know a lot about the UK independent scene. I'm trying to learn more about it. And 2 people, a 19-year-old from Dudley and a 23-year-old, really impressed me because they had to carry this tournament on their back with this main event. And if that main event didn't work out, then who knows what happened. But now we have a potential UK, WWE UK thing on the network. We have potential for, and even if WWE starts blocking some of these indies, I think that there's going to be some new people that are going to be coming in through the grapevine, and they're going to fill those spots. Because I had never heard of any of these names beforehand, and now they're household names in Americas and in Germany, and are even bigger names now in Britain. So it'll be interesting to see. Like Keith said, short term, this is going to benefit a lot of the independent promotions. Long term, it's a bigger mystery, but then again, long term has always been a big mystery when it comes to professional wrestling, because you never know what exactly the trends are going to be, whether this is going to continue to be a hot product or this is going to be a product that is going to have some issues down the line. I think that WWE took a very big gamble on this, and for being a foreign investor, a US-based company investing in Britain and in British professional wrestling, Welsh professional wrestling, Scottish professional wrestling, Irish professional wrestling. This was a big risk for them, and it actually worked out. The day after the tournament, there was this sense of, did this just really happen? Like, nobody was really sure. Like, is this a dream? But it actually isn't a dream. It's actually a reality. 19-year-old Tyler Bate is the first WWE UK champion, and we'll see what they do from here. Well, this was a really fascinating show. Thanks to all who have participated on this edition of Cageside Speaks. We'll see you next time for, hopefully I'll get the Wrestle Kingdom show off the ground. Otherwise, it will be NXT TakeOver and the Royal Rumble as usual on our January run on Cageside Speaks. For now, this has been 14 Fitzpatrick. Have a good day, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you next time for the next edition of Cageside Speaks on CagesideSeats.com. Bye.
Bye.